All right, so remember we're talking about proofs. We're working towards doing a proof. And first we did conditional statements, which we called if-then statements. And then we did a lesson on logic where we learned how to chain our if-then statements together. The next step in doing a proof is being able to take each one of those statements and give a reason why you knew it was true. So basically, we're taking our if-then statements, we're chaining them together, but basically when you're doing a proof, every time you do an if-then statement, you have to be able to give a reason for the then part. You have to be able to tell how you knew it was true. And there's two ways we can do that. Now, the first way is to actually name the rule that's being used in that statement. So the rule could be something like a theorem that we learned, like the vertical angle theorem, or a definition. You could say, definition of right angle. Right angle has 90 degrees. That's its definition. Or you could use a postulate, which is kind of like a theorem, kind of the same thing, and like the linear pair postulate. Basically anything we've learned in class. Now, that's if you remember the names of the rules. But you don't really have to, because there's a second way to give a reason. What you can do is just kind of briefly explain how you know it was true. You don't have to write a sentence or a paragraph or anything like that, just a few words that explains how you knew that thing was true. So I'm going to give you an example right now of how we can provide a reason, and I'll show both methods in the example. So here's what we have. This is our picture. This is basically what's called the given information, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And let's say from this picture, I make the statement that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Remember that equal sign with a squiggle over it means congruent, and it basically means equal for shapes. So we're saying angle 1 and angle 3 are equal. So the way I would mark that, if I wanted to mark it on my picture, remember if you want to mark congruent angles, you put the little arc marker like this. So the little markers that I drew in purple show that they're equal, but I have to give a reason for that. That's what proofs are. So based on the picture, if I want to say that angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent, I have to explain why. Now, the reason they are congruent, if you remember from a week or two ago, those are what we call vertical angles, and we learned that all vertical angles are congruent. So there's two ways you can give a reason. Number one, if you remember the exact name of the rule, you can say it. So that rule is called the vertical angle theorem. Now, if you don't remember that, you don't remember the exact name, but you remember that like they're called vertical angles and they're equal, I said just tell me in words. So what you could say is because they're vertical angles. That's how I knew they're equal. How do I know angle 1 is congruent to angle 3? Because they're vertical angles. All vertical angles are equal. So if you kind of put it into your own words, that keeps you from having to know all the rules by name. But basically, that's providing a reason. And what I want to do next is go back to, remember I said the picture in this example is what we call the given information. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So every proof has to have a starting point. You have to have something to start with. Now we call that the given information because whoever made up the proof, whether it was me making it up for a test or the author of our book putting a question in there, whoever made the proof has to give you something to start with, and that's the given information. Now the given information is always true, so you don't have to give a reason for that. It's just given. Given information was given to me, it's true, and I move on from there. Now the given information could be a picture, like the last example, or it could be a sentence or an equation, it could be anything. So depending on the information, it could be a little bit different. But basically what you guys are going to do, you're going to use that given information to give reasons for the statements that come after it. So it's going to say given something, and you go, okay, that was just given to me, that's true. Statement something else, and then you have to think about it. You go, well, the given and the statement end up becoming the if-then of our if-then statement. It's like if given, then statement, and you have to give a reason how you knew that was true. So let's do one more example so you guys can see how that works. So I'm going to say, and this is not the whole question yet, I'm going to click it up one step at a time. The question is going to be to give a reason for the statement, just like we just did, but this time, instead of the given being a picture, it's an equation. I said, given x plus 5 equals 7, statement x equals 2. So what we're really saying here, the given is like your if part, and the statement is your then part. That's your conditional statement. So what you're kind of saying is, if x plus 5 equals 7, then x equals 2. Now that's true, but then you would have to decide, how do we know that? Based on the given, how do we know that the statement will always be true? So if you look at it as an equation, and you're saying, how did I get from the given to the statement part? It looks like what I did is I solved the equation. And I solved it by subtracting 5 from both sides. See, if I subtract 5 from both sides, the 5's will cancel. 7 minus 5 is 2, and I get x equals 2. So the reason is exactly what I did. So remember last week we did the section on properties of numbers, and we had addition, subtraction, substitution, reflexive, and transitive. We did those properties. Well, this was subtraction. Subtraction property says you're allowed to subtract the same thing from both sides of an equation, and that's what we did. And that's your reason. The reason is the subtraction property, or you can just say subtraction. Or if you, like I said, if you want to put it in your own words, you can just say in words, I subtracted 5 from both sides. And that's fine too. So basically that's our next step, and that's what today's assignment is going to be. You're going to be given some information and given a statement, and then you're going to have to provide the reason. Based on the given and the statement, how do you know the statement is true? And just remember, the given is the if part, the statement is the then part. You have to give a reason for that. That's what we're doing today.